So very quickly, I want to talk about Clark Peoples. And if you're not familiar with Clark, this is her, right? Her pretty self. So Clark is a TikToker, right? But she's really intelligent. She's actually a graduate from Columbia University. And there's a conversation, there's discord on social media oftentimes about her being white passing. This girl. Okay. So she is a great example of why I wrote The Black Child's Guide to Surviving America. And if there's anybody in this world that I would interview, it would be Clark's mother. I would love to interview her mother. I would love to interview her mother because I don't think you guys listen. You know how you guys say she did her big one? Her mom did her big one when it came to Clark. Okay. And we need to have this conversation because again, this is exactly why I wrote this book, and her mom practiced principles that I teach. Let's talk about it. Clark is not an accident. Okay. Clark is a very intentional human that her mom created. I'm speaking when it comes to her nurturing and how intentional she was about Clark. The thing about it is the reason Clark is called white passing is pretty much for the most part is because people feel like they can't relate to her. They see themselves in terms of the way that she looks, but when they look at the way she lives her life and the things she's been able to achieve and the things she does and who she dates, etc., a lot of specifically Black women, that's really where all this discourse is coming from, don't see themselves in her. So now they accuse her of being white passing. However, if they spoke to Clark's mother, I bet they would see more of themselves in Clark's mother. And it's interesting to me that her mom intentionally created Clark to be who she is, because Clark doesn't just wake up and becomes Clark. That means by the time her mom had an understanding of this precious child that was in her hand and she wanted to afford her to have the best opportunities, the mom began to become very diligent in terms of what she exposed Clark to. So Clark is a walking representation of how hard the mom worked to get Clark a better understanding of the world around her, but also to give Clark a better self-image of herself. Now, the reason many people have a hard time, Black women have a hard time when it comes to Clark, is because you're expecting Clark to be a Black woman, meaning you're expecting the Black to be before the woman. But Clark's mom clearly raised her to be a woman, and Black just so happens to be something that she is. So Clark's identity is not defined and is not centered in her Blackness. That does not mean that she doesn't experience racism. That does not mean that she doesn't experience or she's not aware of injustices. No, what it means is that her identity does not come from that place. Her mom gave her a different self-image of who she is. So we understand that in society, there is a representation or reputation of what it means to be Black. Clark's mom worked extra hard to make sure that that was not the identity that Clark had of herself. Okay. And I'm pretty sure a lot of that came from not only her life experiences, but I bet it came a lot to do with her teaching. Because when you're a teacher, you have a ground floor front view of the different things that people are doing with their children. And you're able to learn like, okay, yeah, no, my child, let me go course correct at home. Okay. Because a part of wisdom is learning from other people's mistakes and other people's successes as well. There's a saying that we have in sales, which is that you cannot outperform your self-image. The reason I'm speaking on identity is because there's an identity associated with what it means to be Black. So that means if you fall under that identity, that means that now you begin to cause that to be your self-image. So the question is whether or not that self-image is causing you to prosper or whether it's hindering you. Well, Clark's mom focused on making sure that Clark had a different self-image of herself. So the achievements that Clark has been able to do in society has to do with the self-image and the belief system that the mom instilled inside of Clark. Okay. Oh gosh. So Clark has a different level of confidence. She has a different level of belief system because she truly believes that she can do certain things and she can have certain things and she can go certain places despite the color of her skin. So now when you hear that her mother was a single mother, when you hear that her mother was on a teacher's salary, when you hear that her father went to jail, when you hear that the mother has been divorced, when you hear all of these different things about the mom, you're expecting a woe is me story because we want excuses to excuse us, right, from the things that we want in life, but life does not work that way. You have to go after what it is that you want. You have to create what it is that you want despite the excuses that life has given to you. Clark's mother is a walking example in terms of the way that she raised Clark of what I state in the book, which is that regardless of our circumstances, okay, we are not defined by our history and we're not defined by what society has to say about us. And if you could just understand that your history does not define you, what society has to say about you doesn't define you, and nor do your circumstances define you. Like this woman, if you could simply understand that, you will get all your power back. Okay. Now, Clark doesn't talk about her faith much, and that's okay. She doesn't have to, right, on her platform. But for me, in terms of the book, the theme that you're going to see mentioned a lot is having that faith in God, being rooted in that identity that God has given you. A lot of you guys have came here because of my Cinderella video that's been going viral. And this falls in line with what I'm saying to you. You having an identity that is outside the illusion that society tries to place on you. So Clark's mom made sure for Clark to know that the circumstances that they come from, the history of what it means to be Black and what society has has to say, none of that. All of that is the illusion. What is the truth is who I tell you you are. What is the truth is what God put inside of you. What is the truth is everything that you decide to do and what you decide to learn and how you decide to manifest that in this world. And I can only imagine that her mom was kind of like a coach in her ear, that every time society tried to say something, every time history tried to say something, because people are going to continue to try to bring history towards you to knock you back down, her mom kept her like a compass focused. So you're seeing a manifestation of not only the belief system that the mom instilled in her, but the coaching that the mom continued to give her throughout life, right? How many of us and what kind of position would we be in life if we had that kind of person on our side? Like what Clark's mom did for Clark is what my desire is to do for my children and what I aim to do every single day for my children, which is to be so intentional in what they feel and how they see themselves and the self-image that they have. And anyone that knows me knows I would karate chop you before I allow you to instill any level of inferiority or self-limiting beliefs or doubt into my children. I will karate chop you before I allow you to do that, okay? Like I'm just so serious about this. So I love seeing her flourish in who she is. I love her creating this confusion in people because they so want her to be a specific way, but she's not. So you're seeing someone flourish because they have a great sense of self. They know what they want out of life and they're willing to go after it and they believe that is possible and they have the support system to make it possible. Not that they were uber rich or any of that. They simply just had someone that was breathing life into them, that was speaking life into them and willing to coach them through it, even though they may not have all the skills and the knowledge themselves. I'm pretty sure that Clark has gotten to a place in her life where her mom still helps her in certain areas, but she seeks out other mentors and people because there's a limit to what the mom is able to do. However, the mom, I bet, was very intelligent and very intentional in the communities that she put Clark in so that Clark could have access to resources that the mom may not have immediately had at her disposal right there. When I tell you, I already know this lady snap, she snapped. So if you guys have this many people in society that are having a hard time just grasping just who Clark is and how she's able to be who she is, if you guys are struggling this hard and you guys are seeing the outcome right in front of your face, imagine when the mom was raising her, what the mom was going through. Because people couldn't see the vision. They couldn't see the vision of what she was doing with her child. You follow what I'm saying? They didn't know where that child was going. They probably was looking at that mom saying, you know, you think you better than people, you bougie, you this, you that. Like, you know what I mean? They probably had so much opinions about her because they did not understand her level of intentionality. But look, the outcome of the child that she has is a representation of that intentionality. So again, the book speaks on this so specifically. The mom went through the different parts, which is part one, just nurturing that mind to operate and move through culture. Part two, just the delusions, really stripping down a lot of those delusions. And then part three, thriving by design, creating a system to ensure that your child thrives by design. So yeah, that's amazing. But before I get off here, I want this girl to list off all of her accomplishments in just high school so you can see just how intentional her mom is, because you don't do all this without having a support system to support you through all this. So shout out to Clark, but shout out to her mama, okay? Her mom did that. So listen to this.
So I felt the need to respond to this backhanded comment that is essentially saying, ah yes, a black girl at the #2 university in the country. Of course she just came from a poor community or had an absent father like the rest of the black people in America, but kudos to you for being a good writer. This kind of reductive thinking that people always bring to conversations about black people and especially black women in elite or prestigious spaces, and especially when it comes to college admissions, is so blatantly racist and often completely misplaced. Essay aside, my achievements absolutely spoke for themselves. I graduated top 10 out of 500 students in my graduating class. I also received the IB diploma and had a cumulative GPA of over 100. On the ACT, I received a 33 out of 36 with perfect scores in 2 of the 4 sections. I was elected class president every year from 9th to 11th grade and then student body president my senior year, and I was also president of the mock trial team, on which I received most outstanding attorney awards year after year for my performance in our competitions. I also founded my school's first bipartisan student political association, which still has some of the highest participation of any club at that school to this day. And on top of that, I was an associate editor on the yearbook, I was on the varsity golf team, I was the IB mentoring program coordinator, and I was in almost every National Honor Society my school offered. I interned at a nationally ranked law firm during my junior year of high school, and I was also one of 2 students from the state of Georgia selected to attend the U.S. Senate Youth Program, where I received awards from the U.S. Senate and the President, and I was also one of 300 out of 36,500 applicants to receive the Gates Scholarship, which means that there was a less than 1% acceptance rate overall. I also received multiple smaller awards from the Governor's Office, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Atlanta Bar Association, the Atlanta Public Schools District, the Princeton Club of Georgia, and my school. And to this day, even through Columbia, I've only received 1 B in my entire life. So no, me being accepted to Columbia and then being selected by the admissions team as a Kluge Scholar, which they consider, and I quote, one of the most talented students admitted to the class of 2023, selected from a pool of more than 42,000 students, cannot be reduced to me having what you think is the stereotypical experience and sob story of every Black person in America. If you haven't picked up on this yet, it has much more to do with me simply being that girl. So if you get anything out of this video, I hope it's that you realize the next time you move your fingers or open your mouth to say such an ignorant remark, it says much more about you and the way that you project your insecurities, and it says anything about minority groups and what they're able to truly achieve.